Sunday. This
Thank
rainy
you.
Sunday.
It's a rainy Sunday.
Welcome to the program. If you're ready, journalist Hangout starts now. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's begin with administration of justice in Nigeria. It is said that justice delayed is justice denied, but the miscarriage of justice is even more dangerous. More than 100 concerned Nigerians have signed a petition demanding justice and transparency in the ongoing presidential election petitions tribunal as judgment looms. A petition initiated by the coalition of concerned Nigerians and addressed to several justices highlights the anxiety felt by some electorate. More so, the petitioners call on the justices to be mindful of opinions of international community on the election while adjudicating based on the evidence presented before the tribunal. Gentlemen, let me go with Darren. I mean, over 2 weeks after all parties made their final arguments in the petition, is this apprehension justified?
No, there is nothing wrong in people being apprehensive while we await a major judgment as this. And I think commentators, either on or offline, should stop whipping up certain sentiments. To begin to talk about this apprehension as if it is peculiar to a particular school of thought, or as if it is actually being championed by people who hold a particular position, is wrong. I am also apprehensive. I want judgment. I want judgment done, and I want it to be seen to have been done. You cannot begin to guess what I mean by judgment and begin to use my own position to determine the entire shade of apprehension. No. Everybody, those who are happy with the result of the last presidential election, those who are unhappy, those who sat on the fence, those who are not even concerned, we are all apprehensive. You know why? Because this judgment will mark the end of was it, wasn't it, on that matter. Yeah. Then this judgment will also make the government sit tight and run the government for which they have been elected. It is going to be an end to a lot of things and the beginning to equally a lot of things. This is why nobody should begin to tag the apprehension to mean being for or against. That's where I begin to wonder why we are like this. No. We must not shade opinions. That I don't agree with you should not mean that at all times you are on that side of the fence. No. Sometimes we may just meet. That is one perception to it. The second one is those who are asking for the court, our own Supreme Court now, to please ask for the opinion of international committee. I disagree. We have a court. We have a process. If it is within their process to seek the opinion of international committee, fine. I guess and I believe they would have done that. If it is not, we can't begin to change the goalpost now. I don't know whether it is or it is not. That's why I'm explaining this. But we should not begin because we are entitled to our opinion, because we are free to express how we feel, because it is our right to be apprehensive. We now begin to sort of browbeat the judiciary. No. We must equally allow the judiciary to do its work, and we must make them feel safe doing that work we have entrusted to them. When we begin to send insinuations that make it look like, look, we know what you want to do and we will go against it, then you are standing up against justice. You are standing up against fairness. How do you begin to assume that this is the way they want to go and your thoughts are this way, and therefore you already want to tag them with a tar brush of being unfair? No, that's not part of being apprehensive. Being apprehensive is wishing, hoping, praying that justice will be done.
All right.
to be seen to have been.
All right, so Dr. I after all, the tribunal is expected to deliver judgment on or before September 16. So, like I asked Dari, is this apprehension justified?
Well, I think since the days we realized that judgments in political cases are not strictly on the face of law, that sometimes public perception and opinion will count. Since those days, we've been all out trying to use the media, whether social or traditional, to talk to the judges and justices handling these cases. It's normal. It's nothing strange. If I feel that speaking out will help my case, why not? What stops me? It's a free world. But threats should be what we should watch very closely, where it is becoming like, if you don't allow this to go my way, I'm going to make the country ungovernable. That's where we should begin to draw the line. We've seen a lot of things in the media of recent. Some said former Minister Babatunde Raji Fashola, also former governor of Lagos State, was writing the judgment. Some said Justice Mary Odili was behind it. All sorts of permutation. And such realm of speculations can be allowed. You can say whatever you like, though it is not right. Because if you are so sure of yourself, don't come as a faceless group. Come out as an individual or as an identifiable body and make it so that all of these people can sue you if they are sure of themselves that they are not writing the judgments, not coming via social media publications and all the rest. Because that puts a lot of pressure on not just the judiciary, but on the country as a whole. Because nobody is sure of what is going to happen if this judgment does not go in a particular direction. And that is wrong. We've been having judgments on presidential elections in this country for so long. We've had the 12th to 3rd in the era of the National Party of Nigeria and Unity Party of Nigeria, and the country did not burn. It didn't go up in flames. So we should be careful so that we don't poison the minds of people against the judiciary. We've always said it. That arm of government is the last hope of the common man.
Absolutely.
Once we lose it with them, then...
Right. BKO, how do you react to this? Is this really the case of, if you do not trust the judiciary, why go to court?
I think that where people are confident that the judiciary will deliver the goods, that the judiciary will get the job done, what we've been seeing in the last few weeks would not have been happening. There is no need erecting billboards saying all eyes are on the judiciary. There is no need putting the address of a place where one of the daughters of the judges earns a living on social media as a means of frightening her entire family. These are totally irresponsible things, unheard of in our country. And asking the judiciary or the courts to bear in mind what the international community or a section of the international community said about our elections, again, makes absolutely no sense. What is supposed to determine how the judges will come to their conclusions is the evidence put forward before the tribunal, not what people out there are saying. How many international observers, for example, came to our country? Less than 100 international observers observed from the EU, observed the election in our country, less than 100. And we are talking about more than 170,000 polling centers. So 100 persons are certainly not enough. And we are saying they are not even up to 100. Those, the EU observers, are certainly not enough to assess how the election went in totality. So I see no need for these apprehensions because they are apprehensions. We are supposed to be calm. We are supposed to simply wait for the judiciary to determine the winner of the election. All of what we are saying, claiming that all the necessary evidence was provided for, no, we don't need these things. Once you go before the tribunal or before the judiciary, you must be ready to accept its verdict. You must invest your entire hope on the judiciary. You must trust the judiciary to do its work. And we've seen the judiciary deliver judgment, many cases, even against the run of play, against the ruling party on a number of occasions. There is no need for the apprehension that is in the air. There is absolutely no need for it. There's no need for it. What we see is the result of apprehension, nothing else. If you read the story completely and not just busy yourself with the headline and a few paragraphs, you will see clearly that there is apprehension. You see clearly that some people expect the judgment to go along a particular line. It is not your place to expect the judgment to go in a particular line. You are not the judiciary. Let the judiciary exercise its mandate. And its mandate is to look at the totality of the evidence before it and come to its conclusion. A retired Chief Justice of the Federation once said that evidence is like building a house. If you do not provide the necessary material, the building will collapse. So if you come before a court and you fail to provide all of the evidence needed to enable you win the case, you are going to lose. So this matter will be decided in the final analysis based on the quantum of evidence available to those judges to work on. It's not going to be decided based on saber rattling, based on head banging on the wall, based on sentiment, based on what some of our friends in the international community are saying. That's not what will determine how this matter will be judged. Nigerians should go home, rest, assured that this same judiciary that has been the last hope of the common man and has delivered the goods on so many occasions will get the job done this time around. No one is saying the judiciary is perfect. Of course, they are human beings. We've seen even in the US somebody convicted to die only for them to discover many years after that the man committed no crime. We've seen people in the US sentenced to life imprisonment only to determine more than 20 years after that the person was framed. So the judiciary in anywhere in the world is not perfect, but it remains the last hope of the common man. Let Nigerians invest their hope in that last hope of the common man, believing that in their final analysis, it will give the right judgment, and that right judgment would mean that it is the person who deserve to win the election that won it. And that is what we want to see, nothing short of that.
Thank you, BQ. Well said, gentlemen. Let's get to our next discussion. Nigeria is not just faced with dearth of infrastructure, but also bedeviled by substandard ones. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, has let it be known that under his watch, there will be no award of contract for road construction without concrete layouts. Speaking in Lagos during an inspection tour of the Oshodi-Ojota Road, Umahi wondered why some contractors are against the use of mobile or more durable and cost-effective concrete technology like cement for road construction. And according to the minister, bitumen is more expensive and less durable. Jason.
I completely agree with him. David Umahi knows what he's talking about. And there is no doubt about it. He's a civil engineer, and he governed Ebonyi State for 8 years.
Right.
Where...
Jason, please, before you move on, let's share the story by TVC News. Sarah Yoko with you.
Before the minister concluded his two-day inspection tour in Lagos, he inspected two critical road infrastructure in Ikorodu. One is the Ikorodu-Shagam dual carriage way, a road linking Lagos and Ogun states. He expressed satisfaction with the project, which is about 85% completed, commending Arab contractors for observing construction standards in terms of contractual agreement with the government.
At kilometer 22, and we are just about 8 kilometers to the end. And of course, we are also aware that this is a very strategic road in Southwest because it's also an alternative to Lagos-Ibadan. So once it is completed, anytime there is any problem on Lagos-Ibadan, people can make use of this Ikorodu-Shagam. So we are making very good progress here. Once the money is available, they may even finish before 2024. You know, of course, we have just 8 kilometers to the end. And we are entering, once we enter the dry season in October, or maybe late October, we are hoping that the contractors will have some money, and maybe within the first quarter or so of 2024, we'll knock it off before the next rainy season.
It has gone very, very well. I have over 88.2% of job done. Very important to know that part of it is dualized, and part of it is also on rigid pavement, even though it's coated with 2-inch asphalt and the rest on flexible pavement. If I had come on time, everything would have been on rigid pavement.
However, while inspecting the Ikorodu-Itoikin road, the minister urged the Lagos government to maintain the road in the meantime, while the federal government rehabilitates and makes the 34-kilometer single-lane road a dual carriageway.
I'm going to be looking at the 2022 supplementary to know whether there is any money there, and to fight for 2023 supplementary budget to bring money so that we can start. So I can assure that within the next 60 days.
A comprehensive report for all the bridges in Lagos is expected in a month. It will include a proposal for security infrastructure and surveillance to prevent vandalism around road infrastructure. Sarah Ayeko, TVC News, Lagos.
All right, that's all.
Yeah, so I completely agree with him. If this technology is going to serve us, why not? Because, like I said earlier, he has done it in Ebonyi State, and we can see it. The portion that was cement paved in Lagos, that is if you go from Ojota towards Yanuwara, and then you turn off going towards Oshodi, you'll see that that portion, even on the surface, looking at it with
I
your...
can testify to that.
Yeah, it's smoother, much better than... And I've not seen anything peeling off in the last almost 1 year. It's been there. So I think if we're actually going to do roads, we should make them durable. Instead of having a road that within 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you have to keep going back there. And I completely agree with him. It's just waste of money we've been doing in the past. And if we have the basic things for producing cement in Nigeria, then we should invest more in that. Yes, we also have bitumen, but we are unable to fully process it ourselves. So sometimes we wait for bitumen to come from outside the country. But here we are with cement, and we have a lot of cement factories around which can easily produce for us to meet the requirements of Nigeria. So if it's better in the long run, then why not? We should be looking at that option.
All right. Sorry, Umahi says no concrete layout for the roads, no jobs. And he also talked about the poor works done on Abuja Lokoja Road, Lokoja Linear Road, and he practically blamed the contractors. But do they take all the blames here?
Well, if the minister is the one talking now, and he's the man who is going to be in charge, I want to agree that if he shows to blame the contractors, he's prepared for it. We will then have to forget whatever it is that has happened in the past and see what he's going to put on the table. If after this beautiful observation by Minister Umahi, we see things continue as business as usual, I'll be disappointed. And Dr. said he's done it in Bonyi. But I've not seen it. But if people are bearing testimony, then I am eager to see him repeat it. He already showed me that he appears to know what he's doing, but the things he said, I listened to him complain about the Abuja the road, and he paid glowing tributes to the work done on Ikorodu Shagam Road. I have applied that road very well. I can tell you it is a concrete technology. You need to see the portions that have been almost 2 years more now. Those portions from Odogunyo in Ikorodu down to well after Ogijo, almost getting to Lukosi, that had been completed in the past and we've been using. The roads appear as if they are meant to be forever. No faults yet, no potholes yet. 2 years. And then you leave Lafarge in Shagam into Shagamu town, going towards Ikperu. That road has also been in use for more than 3 years. And you can't still find, except for the overhead bridge which was done by the state, and I have noticed when I take the bridge once or twice, I've seen some very terrible damages done. That was done by the state government in the former administration. If you climb that bridge today, you will see cracks. These are the things we are saying. If we have a technology that has been tested and is proving to be a better option to bitumen, we must learn to change our ways. We can't continue to do things the same way. Now we have a minister who is saying, look, that's why I agree with your question, and should they take all the blame? Why you have a minister or ministry officials who are ready to agree to cutting corners? Okay, is it bitumen you want to use? The contractor say, yes, that's what is readily available for me. Okay, and when they agree to certain things, so they go and use it. Contrary to what is in the Times, the papers. That's what the Mai is saying, that if you know you cannot give us concrete technology, forget about it. He's not saying we will not do roads, though. He's saying that particular contractor will not get the job. It's making it clear. If you don't have the technology, the wherewithal, the manpower to give us this new technology that is proving to be better, then leave the job. Go and upgrade yourself. Come back. Maybe you will do other things. Right. So you will understand that it is what it is. It is what we should do. Move away from what we are used to. Look at all the bitumen roads all over the country. After a year, they will tell you, oh, because there was no drainage, because the rain was heavy that year. Must we always fix roads? So I agree with Umahi. If he's coming with something new, let's encourage him.
All right, so BKO, while you react to that report, what other areas would you advise Dave Umahi to focus on in the discharge of his duties?
I think that if we can find the funding that is needed to rehabilitate our roads and construct new ones, it would go down as one of the best works ministers of his generation. The problem really is funding. And funding is the reason a lot of these contracts don't get executed in quality time. Look at the major road projects that we have today. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the second Niger Bridge, the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Expressway. We have had to look for funds through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, through Abacha loot, in order to carry out those highly capital-intensive projects. And as we speak, contractors are being owed a lot of money. This is the reason a project that's supposed to be delivered in 2 years does not get delivered in 5 years. And during that period, the contract gets reviewed and reviewed and reviewed, and it then means that it costs more money to complete those roads. And there are also all kinds of encumbrances. The BPP, for example. Why do we need the BPP? Because it's just, in my view, extremely unnecessary. Extremely unnecessary and unnecessary bureaucracy. And you hear many contractors complain about corruption as a result of having an agency of government that is not really necessary in the final analysis. So we need to remove the bureaucracies that ensure that projects get delayed. The minister talked about that. And you must have heard what he said in respect of approval for federal projects. He said, come on, if you send me an application to fix a federal road in your state, I am prepared to respond to you within 30 minutes via WhatsApp. Because federal roads are in deplorable states in many states. But some governors are reluctant to move in and fix those federal roads because of what the former president said some time ago, that don't touch my roads. Don't, he actually called the federal roads his own roads. Don't touch my roads, because he felt that the bills will become too high for the federal government to handle. Well, of course, the federal government has too many roads to handle. So states can come in and help you fix those roads, and state governments are doing that because it is their people who use those roads. They can't watch those roads continue to deteriorate. There was a time when Fayose will put a small billboard somewhere, a small signage indicating that this road belongs to federal government, so don't blame me for his present terrible state. We need to solve that problem. And we need to ensure that we build roads that last so many years. Look at Abuja Road, for example, built by former military president Ibrahim Babangida. There are many of them that have not seen a single pothole on them, despite being constructed so many years ago. You can imagine constructing roads more than 30 years ago and there's not a single pothole on one of them. Look at Kudirat Abiola Way. It wasn't constructed with, it wasn't concrete based. But you drive through, since it was constructed around the year 2000, not one pothole on the Kudirat Abiola Way. That was the promise that Julius Baja made to government at that time, that you will not see any pothole on this road in 30 years. So it's possible to even deliver roads with bitumen, with asphalt overlay, and still last for so many years. That one is possible. But in the opinion of the minister, those roads made with concrete reinforcement and all that are cheaper to deliver and they last much longer. I agree with him that since that is established, let's have more of those roads made of concrete, cement-based roads. He has constructed 3,500 of such roads in Ebonyi. I was in Ebonyi State for almost a week. I saw his roads. Even in rural areas, those roads were solid concrete and people are driving freely on them. It's going to take a while. They are going to last so long. Those are the kind of roads that we need. It will save us money. It will save us so much energy. Refurbishing them if we just do the right thing.
All right, moving on. Nigeria is at that point where imminent flooding instilled national fear in us. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has issued an alert on imminent flood in 11 states in the country following the release of water from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. The Director General of NEMA, Mustafa Ahmed, listed the states where floods are likely to occur as Adamawa, Anambra, Bayelsa, Benue, Delta, Edo, Enugu, Kogi State, Nasarawa, Rivers, and Taraba. He urged the state government to put efforts in place to mitigate impact of impending flood on its citizens. Gentlemen, but one thing I would like to say or notice about the National Meteorological Agency is that communication has improved.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think that is helping our case and our causes here. Because the issue of this particular imminent is something we can do little, in my opinion, or nothing about. If Cameroon decides to open Lagdo and release the water from that dam, we cannot stop them. What we could have done is make provisions, clear its paths as it affects us as a country, where possible. Where it is not possible, this kind of information coming early enough is good. It's not left for our people to heed this warning. You see, that flood ends up taking lives, destroying properties, and doing such damages is usually largely due to people not responding in good time or not responding at all to warnings like this. We've been hearing about this for months now. This is going to happen. Please vacate certain areas that are likely to be affected. But I tell you, the water will come, it will still meet some people there. That's when we begin to ask ourselves questions. Was it that the agencies concerned didn't do their work? If they did, what happened? We, the people. We have roles to play in this. You are unfortunate to have sited your building on the way of this flood. You are unlucky to hail from a community located in a place that this particular flood will affect you and others. If you have the opportunity of being warned, you should consider life to be of more importance than any other thing. I've seen people in TV footage saying they waited back because they could not harvest their the products from the produce from their farms in good time, and they were not ready to let go. We should avoid behaviors as this, so that the effects of a disaster as this, already foretold, will be minimal. And that's going to help us in a long way. And I want to, like you said, appreciate this agency for finally doing what it ought to be doing. Disasters will come, especially natural disasters. What we should be concerned about is what are we able to do to reduce its impact. Those that can be averted totally, informations like this also are needed for concerned persons and concerned agencies and even the government to plan and implement solutions to this problem.
So, Doctor, I mean, Nigeria has been more focused on post-disaster flood response than control.
Well, that's how we've been as a nation. But now we appear to be saying something before the disaster. But there are issues that we should be able to tackle before these things come. If you ask me, for most of those who don't live where they are, I don't blame them. Because what are the alternatives? In this country, we are no longer a brother's keeper, and for so many reasons. The economy, the attitude of some of those who will try to keep us our brothers. Some will come into your home and refuse to leave. Some will come and not make the place pleasurable again. Because I know in other countries when they say there is going to be a tsunami, people move into the houses of relatives and friends. But because those clients don't allow for them to misbehave, they leave as soon as these things are over, or tarry a while and then go at the same, and then they share the burden. In Nigeria, it's a different ballgame. Somebody comes into your home and you don't have peace again. Like he said also, there are people who have invested in farming and who feel that they better lose their lives than lose what they have invested. There are people like that. And then, for me also, as Nigerians, we should be looking at our own sanitation. We block drainages. Apart from building on water channels, we should also be looking at that. We should be conscious of the fact that these things will happen. It's even going to get worse because of the climate change. And that's what we've been saying, in the last 2-3 years, where sometimes an entire state is run over by water, especially in those states close to Cameroon, Cross River and all the Adamawa and all the rest. That's what you find. So there should be conscious effort to ensure that things run properly. And then also, I think in the long run, we also should, as a country, begin to think of how we can maximize this water being released. Can we do something, dam it also, and do all year-round farming? Because we are not taking advantage of this. What we allow is for the water to flood the farms. Whereas for Cameroon, it is conscious release of the water. This thing is full, okay? Let's release it. And then we can do some farming with it, possibly.
Right. Mikio, 11 states likely to be flooded. What awaits us?
Unfortunately for us, we are yet to recover fully from the flood disaster of last year, which killed hundreds of thousands of our people and rendered people homeless, pushed people further down the poverty pit because many people lost their farmlands. In fact, one of the biggest rice growers in our country lost a very big rice farm in Nasarawa State, one of the biggest rice growers. Talking about Olam, is clearly in the first 5 in our country among the big-time rice growers. They lost their farm. So many people are yet to recover because some were forced to quickly harvest their crops before the due date. Now we have been warned that the Cameroonians will, as usual, release water from the Lagdo Dam. The question to ask is there an alternative to this routine release of water from the Lagdo Dam? There's no alternative. If they don't release the water and the dam breaks, it will kill hundreds of thousands of people. That is what they must avoid. They must avoid a situation in which the dam gets so full and it breaks. That will cause a big, big disaster. So we are not praying for that to happen, because economic trees, anything along its path will be destroyed. But for us as a country, it is not even the states that the River Benue is passing through them that are affected. Even states that have the River Niger passing through them are going to be affected. And people again will lose their farmlands, whether we like it or not. People will lose their farmlands. People will lose their homes. It's an extremely painful thing for our people to experience. And on top of that, we have been told that water, again, could be released from our 3 major hydro plants, Shiroro, Kainji, Jeba, because as a result of climate change and the rest of them, they too will experience their own overflooding. The question to ask is, even in those places, how much of desilting have we done? Because if we do not desilt these dams from time to time, if we do not desilt the Niger River in communities where it is passing through, then the chances of it being of it overflowing its banks are very, very high. So we've got to sit up and look for solid measures, remedial measures that we can take to mitigate the pains. Everyone knows that, look, these things will happen. What are we doing to mitigate the pain on our people? How are we resettling people? How many of the people that we are resettling are going to be provided with basic needs? This is not what we are not doing. You need to go to some of the resettlement centers. You see clearly that government has failed in its responsibility of catering to the needs of people who, for no fault of theirs, have had to be relocated as a result of this yearly flooding of their communities. I just pray that this time we do it a lot better, because the pain will come, but we must help our people mitigate the pains that at this stage one could say are inevitable.
All right. So let's move on. Organized labor in Nigeria is trying to show that it can bark and bite regarding its concern over petrol subsidy removal hardship in the country. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has threatened to cripple the economy, starting with a 2-day warning strike over unresolved issues surrounding removal of petrol subsidy by the federal government. The warning strike, which will take place on Tuesday and Wednesday, is expected to culminate into a total strike if, after 21 days, the government failed to resolve the dispute over palliatives to cushion the effect or the impact of fuel subsidy hike on its citizens. BKO, let me start with you. Organized labor, or rather NLC, says it looks like the government is not serious and that nothing has changed since the last meeting with government.
I think to a large extent, I sympathize with labor because, yes, you could argue that organized labor accounts for just 5% of our population. But the Nigerian people look forward to them, and they have dependents. So by the time you add their dependents and other people, maybe even if you say each of the members of organized labor has maybe just 4 or 5 dependents, at the end of the day, you see that people who depend on labor to respond effectively to the challenge on ground will be in the region of even 40% of our population, conservatively. So it is the duty of labor to get the fairest deal from government on these matters. Nigerians are going through so much pain. Yes, the measures that have been taken are measures that are painful but desirable. But there has to be mitigating measures taken to ease the pain on our people. What Labour is saying is that, yes, we've had meetings with these people, but we've not achieved anything. And those meetings have not even been held regularly as a way of pushing us to that stage when we can actually say this is what is coming from government. There ought to be a committee to decide on the minimum wage. The question to ask is, how many times has the committee sat to give the nation a new minimum wage? The totality of government's reaction to the pains inflicted by subsidy removal, we still have not seen it in terms of the decisions reached with Labour on the measures that will be taken. That is why Labour is complaining. I have accused the NLC president of using fighting words, of using foul language against the government of the day. But I've seen an improvement. He's no longer using some of those words that I saw him use in the beginning, and I said, look, Labour leaders before you never spoke in this manner. Yet, they extracted commitments, they got the job done. And I can see that the NLC president no longer talks in the manner that I once described as childish. But now, it behoves on government to show its seriousness, to solve the problem on ground, to show Labour that, look, we are ready to solve this problem. The last time they complained about the fact that it was the chief of staff that the president nominated to chair the committee. And they are saying, look, by nature, a chief of staff is extremely busy. And because he's extremely busy, maybe that's why they are not seeing the kind of movement that they expected. I would love to see the government move faster on the remedial measures that it intends to take to ease the pain on our people. And the remedial measures include, of course, a minimum wage, a new minimum wage. We should have had another minimum wage if we were actually following our constitution. There should have been a minimum wage before now, even before this government took over power. There should have been another minimum wage. Now, no one is talking about that, but the president said that states and federal government need to come up with a new minimum wage. So I want to see the president drive that conversation and ensure that we move very fast on the matter of a new minimum wage, because it's making life difficult for our people. People can't go to work as much as they would love to. And that in itself affects productivity and affects the GDP. The president said he wants to see the GDP grow. The GDP will not grow when there is an evident decline in productivity. So we need to see government work with Labour and move faster on this matter. They've said they are going to meet with Labour on Monday. Many people will be wondering, why did they have to wait until Labour issued a notification for a warning strike? So you want to meet with them a day before the warning strike. We've got to do things better and get the buy-in of Labour. Once government moves in a way that suggests that government is not happy to see people continue to suffer, I'm sure that even the attitude of Labour will change. So from now on, I would want to see government show greater seriousness on this matter. Whether it is the CNG conversion of gasoline engines to CNG-fired engines that we want to do, let's do it quickly. Whether it's, importing of vehicles to ease transportation and make transportation cheaper for our people, whether that's what we want to do, we've got to do that quickly. And for Labour and other Nigerians to see. And if it's minimum wage that we want to talk about and other measures, let's take those measures quickly so that people will see that the government means well and the government is determined to ease the pain on our people. If government continues to delay on this, it will affect the perception that Nigerians have of the government. And more and more people will queue behind Labour.
Thank you. Dari, Dr. Amin, while you react to the same issue, NLC raised other issues apart from palliatives, accused the Nigerian police of laying siege to the national headquarters of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, alleged exploitation of the right of workers in Imo State, interference in trade union matters by the Abia State government, and also demanding that the new Minister of the Federal Capital Territory desist from threatening poor masses in the FCT with demolition of their properties. Dr. Please go first.
Well, maybe let me first make a comment on the minimum wage. My fears are twofold. One, inflation. Two, some states, as we speak now, have not been able to pay the old one. So, where do we go from there? Like BQ said, what I expect is that by now, we should have found a short-term solution to the cost of transportation. And I'll still keep using what we have now. By rail, from Lagos to Ibadan, for the economy class, what we have is 3,600 naira. So it even makes sense to travel by road because it's cheaper. What government should be looking at are those kind of things. If you need to add more coaches to those trains going to Ibadan, and quickly open up those offices, those stations that are still not completed, where people can easily have access into town along the route, it's far better. And we can do it along the different corridors. You already have Abuja, Kaduna. You have the Warri Itape. You know, all those corridors, open them up by train first. Those are short-term measures. I don't know. I know we will have the argument that bringing in coaches and all the rest, yes, it could take time, but we should be able to see some movement. We are not seeing any. We are not seeing new buses on the road that are either fired by gas or electricity. We are not seeing them. Those are the kind of short-term measures people should be able to see. When those ones come and you spend less on transportation, you spend less on food, then you can begin in the long run to think about minimum wage. There are so many issues surrounding the country, and you've spoken about some of them. I don't support laying siege to the office of NURTW. It was wrong in the first place. That body had an election to which even the past president subjected himself to. So why are we going back? Why are we making it look like as if there is a problem somewhere? There isn't one. Nobody should forcefully control a union. Nobody should. A union is an organization of people who are willing to come together to subject themselves to certain rules and regulations. What government should show interest in is if there is going to be breakdown of law and order. And in that place, there was none. At least as far as media reports were concerned, up until when the police showed up. Because the new chairman went there, we were not told anybody opposed him, we were not told heads were broken there, and then all of a sudden, you have policemen showing up. That's not good enough. On the issue of the FCT, Labour will still have to make some concessions. Those who are being affected now, in my opinion and estimation, are not common men. They are the people who have... Look at the building that crumbled last week. How did we get to that in the first place? No common man would have built that kind of building. It's still the super rich. They are the ones who can afford the land. And if at the end of the day, what the government is saying is, see, we should have a plan for this city, then we should be able to abide. One of the things we are suffering in terms of when they release water from Lagdo Dam is this lack of planning. People building on channels, people throwing dirt into the available drainage that we have. Once we can't curb all of these things, we are going to keep being in trouble as a nation. We can't run away from that.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that Nigerian Labour Congress, as well as the TUC, and the current administration are likely to be at loggerheads. And when that happens, I will be disappointed more in the government. Because this current administration should know that it is enjoying an unprecedented support from Nigerians. The readiness of Nigerians to make sacrifices since President Bola Tinubu took drastic decisions on fixing our economy should be applauded. And I think it is because most Nigerians have come to realize that we need to support President Tinubu in his own determination to do those things we ought to have done many years ago. That is commendable. I, for one, would wish to see the president take more of such steps, which, in my opinion, would save the future of the country. However, there are needs for us to ensure that these people making these sacrifices, bearing these pains, are not made to believe that they have been left alone. Even where our attempts to ease their pain is not enough, we must constantly show them that we are with you in this. This is where the issue of labor comes up. Labor has been able to prove to Nigerians that the negotiations are not moving as they should. So government must quickly change the wheel and be seen to be ready to make life better for Nigerians. And how do you do this? Negotiate with labor. The need for a new minimum wage is not debatable. And it should not be something we will keep in abeyance or we keep hoping will come. It should come now. And it is not just about those, because when you say labor, and you say minimum wage, the civil service, government workers are largely the beneficiaries. The private sector at this time should be seen to be part of the sacrificial lambs. It is important that every Nigerian, whichever sector you are in, benefit from this minimum wage we are currently discussing. It is important because every Nigerian will go to the same market to make purchases. Every Nigerian will pay school fees. So, Nigerian Labour Congress decision to have warning strikes should not be what will be spurring government to react. I see their decision or their announcement that they will meet with Labour on Monday as belated. Okay. We should not be saying things like this. We should see a government that is responsive. You have made promises. We will not go back to subsidy era, but we will make sure that we have palliatives. Right. One of those palliatives should be in the area of transportation. Let's take a cue from what Lagos State government have done. People may see it as being very minute, but it has gone a long way. That is reducing the cost of BRT buses. Let me tell you what it has done in Lagos. Traffic situation has improved drastically. Right. Because more Lagosians now keep their car at home and join the BRT buses.
All right, fantastic.
So we should have more of such things at a time like this. That will keep labor away from threats and strikes. Right. Then we can move forward and find a way of making life better for Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will get to some good and exciting news. I'll be right back.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
So I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Journalist Hangout on Sunday, and I have been hanging out with Dotun Oladipo, Dare Odufowokon, and Babajide Kolade Otitoju, who's joining us from Abuja. All right, gentlemen, let's move on. Hope is rising for Nigeria's economy and oil production. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Medicare, announced that oil production has increased to 1.6 million barrels per day from less than 1 million barrels some months ago. Carriage also added that petrol consumption in the country has declined by 30% following removal of subsidy by President Bola Tinubu. And according to him, the reduction in fuel consumption from about 66.7 million liters per day before the removal of subsidy to about 46 million currently means 30% drop in the demand for foreign exchange by NNPCL to import fuel. Mikhail, with this news, as Nigeria regained position as Africa's largest oil producer, what does this mean?
Yes, if we are able to sustain this over a long period, maybe like 1 month at least, then we could be on the way to regaining our position as Africa's biggest oil producer. Our quota is still not being met, despite this good news from the NNPCL CEO, because our quota is 1.7 million barrels a day. So the question is, can we do this consistently? If we can do it consistently, then we'll be moving very close to meeting our target, our quota, our OPEC quota. If a war-torn country like Libya can be doing about 1.250 million barrels a day, then something is truly wrong with us as a nation. And a lot of the problem we face can be blamed on oil theft, but it's not oil theft alone. We've seen big companies, big oil companies leave Nigeria because of the uncertain nature of the business, because of oil theft and other reasons. Once they leave and they've not been replaced, there is no way to not affect oil production. So this same country was able to do about 2.2 million liters in the past. 2.2 million barrels in the past on a daily basis. But look at where we are. Sometimes we are, just as he said, we were not even able to do up to 1 million barrels. Our performance for the month of July was 1.08 million barrels a day, at least when it is aggregated. It is not good enough. But if we can consistently improve and do maybe 1.6 million barrels a day on a consistent basis for at least a month, we will also earn a lot more. We'll earn a lot more, and our foreign exchange illiquidity, which has been a big problem, will certainly improve. And thankfully too, because we've refrained from defending the Naira with our foreign reserves the way we were doing for years, it means that we've been able to save some foreign exchange, and government is earning much more money than before. I've been told that even in the first few weeks, they were able to save in excess of $2 billion that could have been spent in the past, that would have been spent in the past to defend the Naira. So we are moving gradually towards achieving solvency as a nation. And just as the Minister of Finance said, we'll be able to find more money. If things improve, we'll be able to find more money to attend to critical infrastructure, and we won't need to be borrowing money the way we used to borrow money. I'm happy that even the quantum of money that the NNPC used to take to import petrol into the country has also gone down as a result of the daily demand coming down from 66.7 million liters a day to 46 million liters a day. That's about 30% reduction in consumption rate. So we'll be able to free some dollars there, which of course could be used for other things. This is good news, but we need to work hard. Based on current statistics, we are number 3 in Africa in terms of production, and of all the big oil-producing countries, we are the least in terms of our refining capacity, even in terms of our production over a long period. There is still room for improvement, but I'm happy to hear that we are making progress.
Mm-hmm. Room for improvement, Doctor. 30% reduction in petrol consumption. How impressed are you?
Well, it's okay, but I think more will still happen.
More reduction?
Two reasons will account for that. Number one, the spending power of Nigerians is definitely going down. We've just entered into a new phase, a new season, where we are not only sewing according to the clothes available, we are also going below. You know the saying, you don't sew according to your size again. You watch what you do. So everybody is now coming down and saying, see, I can't, like you said, afford to put my car on the road now. Let me leave it at home. Not because the person wants to, but circumstance. I don't want to put on my power generating set now. Not because I shouldn't, but because I cannot afford. So it will still come down. And then the second part of it is smuggling is now no more profitable. So that's why some people are arguing. All those filling stations in border communities that were shut down, open them up now. Whoever wants to take it across the border will pay more to take it because it doesn't make economic sense again. No more profit. So it's good. And we are going to gradually get to a position where we are going to see the true picture of how much petrol we consume in the country. We're going to see the true picture. So it's a good starting point. But then we must also make the point that we need to sustain whatever we have done now to ensure that we don't go below where we are. We should be pushing up. We still have about 100 million more. What we have is about 1.7 allocated towards by OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So we can still do it. What have we been doing? Curbing theft, curbing pipeline breakages, and all the rest. So we should keep it up. We are seeing some flurry of activities, even around the military now, that we have seen was those are when it comes to these issues. Some things are happening, even if we don't agree totally with some of those things. Like what happened just some few days back, where the military said it arrested some officials of Tantita Security Service for aiding the stealing of crude, and we had this back and forth where Tantita said no, it is a lie, provided video evidence and all the rest. But whatever we need to do, even if this face-off is going to help us, we need to keep it up.
All right. Dari, how do we keep this up?
Well, doesn't just said it. I'm going to start by agreeing with the very last thing he said. If it will take non-allies disagreeing, having face-offs, for us to really know what has been happening, then it's good for us as a country. So the military, the private security organizations, the NNPC officials, Nigerian oil sector chiefs and SARS, as well as government agencies and operatives concerned about sanitizing the oil sector should all be more up and doing. That is the way to keep it up. We should all be more up and doing. We should realize the fact that the desire, the zeal of the current administration, especially Mr. President, to revamp our economy will not go a long way unless that sector, the oil sector, is reawakened. Unless certain anomalies that have been going on there are stopped. You see, Nigeria is a funny nation. Nigerians are funny people. And that's why we can survive. Rather than get angry, we just see it as laughable. We stopped subsidy. We have 30% reduction in what we are consuming. In other countries, people were talking about, we must probe what has been happening. Nigerians are like, look, that is what has been happening. This is what is happening now. Let's move on. Let's forge ahead. Because you cannot put that totally to some misappropriation, smuggling, whatever. No. I will tell you, on the surface, even on an individual basis, electricity consumption or electricity in itself seems to have improved a little bit. That affects or reduces the use of petrol for generating sets. That's one aspect. People even switch off their appliances and everything in their house now to save what they consume. So if PSN decides to give us all the lights in the world now, we are not even willing to consume. Those are the changes that have been happening. Bring all the fuel. We just use what we want to use because your pocket will determine what you will use now. So the truth of the matter is, what is happening with our ability to produce more for the international community is good for our economy. What is happening with our own reduction in what we consume is equally good for the economy, because now we put less foreign exchange, less dollar needed for us to import more fuel. So we are importing what we use now, and we are saving foreign exchange to which we can put to other good uses, not just any use. And that's where government comes in. We are making a lot of saves here and there. Where are those saves going? It is important. If making those saves help us to re-inject this thing into the economy, boosting what we need to get out of the logjam, the corner we have found ourselves, then it simply means we are doing what we ought to be doing. Making people make sacrifices. Making Nigerians live less enjoyable, because we are living less enjoyable lives, I must tell you. Nigerians are living less enjoyable lives. Nigerians are making sacrifices. It is because we have been told, and we now agree, that we all need to go through this for our lives to get better in future. We need government to ensure that what we are saving is being put to those uses that will better our life in future. That is when all this good news will translate into better life for Nigerians. And that's exactly what we need. That's the main reason why we are making these sacrifices.
All right, let's move on to our next discussion, which is still centered on the economy. As a life wire of any country, a wobbling economy translates to hardship for citizens. The governor of Anambra State, Professor Soludo, announced, or rather analyzed, the country's macroeconomics and concluded that President Bola Tinubu inherited an economy that could be compared to a dead horse or standing. Governor Soludo commended the president for some economic decisions he has taken, including the removal of petrol subsidy in his first 100 days in office, urging Nigerians to support the government in achieving its plans. Bikio, let me come to you. Does this in any way correspond with Minister Wale Edun's take? I mean, just yesterday or day before, he said the last time Nigeria's economy exhibited a noteworthy period of stability was approximately a decade ago.
What the governor is simply saying is, the truth. He's talking about the economy that this president inherited. It's very self-evident. Look at the number of Nigerians, for example, that our Bureau of Statistics said had slipped into the poverty pit. About 170 million Nigerians are believed to be poverty-stricken. That's a huge number. And an economy that suffers from double-digit inflation, at least that had been the case for so long. Double-digit inflation, very weak national currency. You know, at the time, around 2015, the naira exchange to the dollar at less than 200 naira to a dollar. But today, sometimes in the parallel market, it's even in excess of 900 naira to a dollar. So, no one can say that the economy that Tinubu inherited was a thriving one, because on ways and means alone, we are talking about a loan of 22.8 trillion naira from ways and means alone. It means that the government found it difficult to pay its bills and just continued to call on the CBN to print money for it. That will not happen in an economy that was thriving, or that is thriving. Again, look at our debt to revenue situation. We were spending 96% of our revenue on debt servicing. The ideal thing will have been to look at, not look at debt to GDP, but look at debt to revenue. And when you look at our debt to revenue ratio, it is extremely dangerous. That means virtually everything that you earn, you are spending it in debt servicing. No one needs to tell us that we found ourselves in a hole. We were approaching a fiscal cliff. And if the president had not stepped in to remove subsidy and to stop the subsidy that the foreign exchange market was benefiting from, things will have gone from worse to worst, and we will have found it extremely difficult to stay in business as a country. Not many Nigerians, in fact, I would say that Nigerians didn't know that we were owing JP Morgan and others about $15 billion. It was never reflected even in our debt stock. So it was a secret loan in the real sense of it that the former CBN governor allowed to happen, because the National Assembly did not give the approval for those loans. We were collateralizing loans with money from our foreign reserves. No wonder the other day JP Morgan said we did not have 33 billion in our foreign reserve, that we actually had a little over $3 billion. So the economy was approaching a very terrible situation at the time the president took over. And look, Soludo belongs to a different political party. But the good thing is, he said the truth. He said the truth. Government was broke. Government was broke. And we said a lot of these things in the past, but people told us, no, the government is not broke. Well, how come? We even got turned back by China the other day when we asked for a loan. Because if you find yourself in this kind of situation that you're spending nearly all what you are earning to service your loans, international institutions will downgrade your ratings, and you will find it difficult to access funds globally, because everyone will see you as insolvent. Nigeria had entered that phase of insolvency, and we needed an open heart surgery. That is where we found ourselves now. So this is a time to say the truth. I'm impressed with the governor of Anambra State, because he said the truth. But we are beginning to earn money. Some states are earning now, as a result of removal of subsidy, 3 times what they earned some months back. So states have no business now not paying workers, things are improving in terms of revenue, because even the bulk of what we earned from crude oil sales, we were using it to pay for subsidy. That is no longer happening.
All right. Thank you, Bikio.
So we are on a good part of recovery, and we just pray that the government will have that political will to keep us on the course of recovery as a nation.
All right, Bikio. Dr. How do you react to this hard truth?
Well, it's the hard truth. And I like the other part of it. That's when Soludo said we should expect bumpy ride. You can't run away from that. And that's always the point with people who have to deal with government in this economic hardship, e.g. labor. What's the hard truth? What's the hard fact? We're in a hole, and to get out of that hole, it's going to be bumpy. Soludo said it all. He's a member of the All Progressive Grand Alliance. The government at the center is the All Progressive Congress. He spoke as somebody who was a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and a very sound economist. I didn't read the economy, or I don't know so much about it. But from what I can see, not just hearing, even the books are showing it. As part of what he said the government printed over 22 trillion, leading to high inflation, not backed by any economic policy or anything. It was just, we need to keep going. A CBN report came out, which was published today by The Punch. The first 3 months of this year, the expenditure of the federal government exceeded revenue by 1.4 trillion. Just the federal government. Where do you get this? You go borrowing. So the ride is definitely going to be bumpy if we are going to come out of this. We should be good students of history. Can we go and look at other countries that survived this kind of economy? People are quick to mention Malaysia, but are we ready to go through what Malaysia went through to become a superpower today? Malaysia doesn't have the kind of resources that we have, and it is thriving because a lot of things have changed. They've looked at areas where they had comparative advantage, IT especially.
All right.
And they're good to go.
So, Dari, Dr. and Bikio have both talked about the political will to take harsh decisions.
That's what we need. That's exactly what we need. And so far, so good. I think we found in the saddle as president a man who is ready to offer this political will and take harsh, or let me say, take seemingly harsh decisions. These decisions are not enjoyably being taken by him. He's taking, I recall listening to, during an interview with Abuja Tinubu when he left office as governor. He wasn't president then. He recalled some decision he had to take as governor of Lagos State. And he told us during the interview that at times he will get home and scold himself. This is going to inflict hardship, pain on some people. Well, people are not going to enjoy this. But he will quickly tell himself, Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu took those decisions. You are reasoning as citizen Bola Ahmed Tinubu now. Please, citizen Bola Ahmed Tinubu, be ready to bear with these decisions taken by Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's how difficult it will be for him now when he is alone and he's reviewing some of his decisions. But these are things we need to do. Having said that, we should also understand the fact that Dr. said we should be good students of history. In 2011, 12 years ago. The then federal government, under the leadership of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, announced the need for us to remove subsidy. For months, analysts, government mediators, government officials were explaining to us why subsidy had become a national tragedy. I recall that they told us, as part of their need to convince us that this thing has to go, they told us Nigeria was on the brink of insolvency if we don't do away with subsidy. We continue that subsidy regime for another 12 years. So you can imagine that what BK was trying to tell you is this sorry situation of Nigeria. We don't need much explanation. Right. If you discover that we continue for 12 years after we were told we were about to be insolvent, then you understand where we are today.
All right, gentlemen. Let's get to the final lap of the program. The Zamfara State security challenge continues to take minds on the way out of the doldrums. The Emir of Gumi, retired Justice Lawal Gumi, has painted a grim picture of insecurity in a northwest state. At a panel session on crafting a strategic blueprint for security and prosperity at the 2023 annual conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Emir traced the root cause of banditry in the state to indiscriminate allocation of land to farmers since May 1999. The NBA used the session for stakeholders to judge on defeating insecurity and engendering prosperity. The news, Celestina Area tells us more.
Banditry continues unabated in Zamfara, and the alleged injustice perpetrated by some traditional rulers in Zamfara state has been identified as a contributing factor to the problems in the state. Emir of Gumi is an interested party who believes that the centralization of authority in all security agencies has further exacerbated the situation. Explaining further, the Emir insists the remote causes of banditry in the state dates back to the indiscriminate allocation of land to farmers starting in May 1999. The pushback from those who believed they were robbed is what has resulted in killings, kidnappings, ransom payments, livestock rustling, and arson.
With 6,319 persons arbitrarily and willfully killed, 3,672 people kidnapped, 2,805,049,748 naira paid as ransom, 6,483 widows and 25,050 orphans left behind by slain victims, 215,241 cows, 141,404 sheep, 20,600 other animals such as camels and donkeys wrestled, and 3,587 houses, 1,487 motor vehicles and motorcycles burnt. All these statistics are contained at page 279 of the report of the former Inspector General of Police, MD Abubakar's report on banditry in Zamfara State. Since the publication of that report in September of 2021, these figures have since quadrupled.
In response to these challenges, Justice Gumi proposes several remedial actions for traditional and religious leaders: intercessory prayer and fasting and charity, traditional science, local joint task force, crowdfunding for security operations, empowerment of youths, civil education and social orientation, regulation of Islamic schools, prioritization of character over money, corruption and violence. The core focus of the renewed hope agenda was made clear by the National Security Advisor, as it is paramount, closely entwined with the economic dimension of the administration's agenda.
On past efforts to improve border security to ensure a more controlled movement of persons and goods in and out of the country. This will go a long way in preventing the movement of small arms and light weapons and ending other illicit activities such as cross-border banditry and transnational crimes.
The Nigerian police force also came under scrutiny with a call for a comprehensive overhaul that would include rigorous selection and recruitment processes. This transformation aims to enhance the police's ability to maintain law and order, providing effective policing to communities.
In Oputebe, where some personnel of SWAT are reported to have been engaging in activities considered to be detrimental to the peace and well-being of the citizens. In fact, he was very definite about some of the activities amounting to a breach of the fundamental rights of the citizens. Well, Frank, what I would say is that I will take this home and we will investigate.
A lot of what we get the soldiers to do naturally should not be their responsibility. We need to equip the police sufficiently, make them capable of confronting the security challenges that we face in our country without having to invite soldiers from their barracks to come and help with internal security. Sense for other geopolitical zones to try their hands at a homegrown solution. A homegrown solution that serves as support to our traditional security agencies, the police, the army, the air force, and the rest of them. We just have to work together.
One major factor that we were mitigated with when we came on board, we received well over 5,000 petitions in a month on elders farmers classes. We moved in by educating the elders on their rights as a Nigerian to do their business. We equally intimated and informed the farmers that they cannot take laws into their hands. These were done before enforcement. And I want to tell you today that in Ondo State, farmers are going to farms.
Security is not the sole responsibility of the government, but a collective duty. However, the government bears a fundamental responsibility of safeguarding its citizens. Celestina Iria, TVC News, Abuja.
There you have it, the 2023 annual conference of the Nigerian Bar Association. Biko, let me start with you. You were at that event. How fundamental is this picture Emir Gumi painted?
Well, he painted a very grim picture of the state of insecurity in a state that I've always described as the capital of banditry in our country, with more than 30,000 bandits roaming the state and occupying its extensive forests. So I am not particularly surprised about some of what he said, because I was there in August last year, and I've been told that even some of the places that I visited at that time, like Anka, things have degenerated. People have even told me that I can't return to some of those places that I went to in August last year. And in August last year, I went to see a school where bandits actually kidnapped so many schoolgirls. And what I found was that as a result of that attack, more than half of the students refused to return to school. So if we want to defeat the out-of-school children syndrome, we must first fix insecurity, because these guys are constantly targeting students. They know that when they target students, government will come up with ransom. The media will report it in a manner that makes it inevitable for government to step in and pay ransom. Remember the federal government college bringing Yauri students that were kidnapped by the notorious bandit Dogo Gide. Some spent about 2 years in his hands. Some of them were impregnated. These are terrible. These are terrible things happening in the Northwest. But as we've seen, even the North Central also suffers. But we need to look inwards. And Ondo State has given us a reason to believe that homegrown security module can actually work. Amotekun is a success story in Ondo State, and the commander of the Amotekun in Ondo State actually impressed the lawyers and security people in attendance by the statistics that he reeled out. In fact, we were told that internally generated revenue has also responded to improvement in security. So they now generate more money in Ondo State now than before, because productivity will improve when people are able to go to their farms, when people are able to conduct their businesses without the fear of being attacked and all that. If people are in IDP camps, you don't expect such people to be productive, because they just sit in the IDP camps waiting for handouts and all that. So we need to see how, before even state police comes in, we need to see how we can come up with homegrown solutions, homegrown ideas, working with the police and other security agencies in protecting our people. So the point that was made at that session that I moderated was, look, we all have to jump in and solve the problem of insecurity in our country. We can't leave it to the police and the armed forces alone. It is clear now that we all have to work together.
But some groups have said another option to tackling insecurity in Zamfara State is for the government to declare a state of emergency.
Well, declaring a state of emergency won't change much, because what we've had here perpetually has been a state of emergency. It's tackling the very foundation of that problem. And then number two, like BKO said, it's also the realization by people that it is not only those who bear arms and wear uniform formally as security men that should be left to do this. I read what I consider a funny but very serious story, which was also published by my own platform, that's in Brini Magaji in Zamfara. Some bandits came into that village, took away women from the village, and the villagers were able to identify some of those bandits as having houses in their own village, and they went and kidnapped their own wives too. So the bandits are now negotiating with the villagers for the release of their own wives, meaning we are ready for you. And if it gets to that point, it means nobody is safe again, because even the bandits are suffering it. So they have come back into town to come and plead with them to release their wives. So it has gotten to that point where homegrown solution must be found. When these regional security outfits were going to come up during the last regime, there was stout opposition to it. But we can see what they are doing, especially in Ondo State, like we could have said. In Osun, it's also working. In Oyo State, to a large extent, too. So, if we are able to get people who are not criminals into some of these security outfits, we'll be able to get something done. When last did we hear of any major strike in Ondo State? Especially after the Catholic Church incident, where a lot of people were killed and many injured. Security has been tightened, and it's still the same set of people who are doing it, meaning that there has been a solution has been found. More money has been put in by the state government into improving the capacity of the Amotekun in that state.
All right, so Dari, another report coming from Zamfara State talks about the paralyzing vacuum at the highest levels of leadership in that state.
Zamfara is a peculiar case when we discuss insecurity in Nigeria. The earlier those who should be concerned know this and admit it better. It's not enough to talk about banditry and all this and charge people to bring about a change in Zamfara. And there are reports of certain things aiding and fueling these things. I can tell you for free that the level of illegal mining going on in that state. Of gold. The investment people make into security as regards this illegal mining business is one threat to peace in Zamfara. People carry guns, people provide guns to people to guide and safeguard their interest in this illegal business. There are also reports that should be checked of illegal allocation of land to farmers and other land users in these same states, fueling insecurity. If you have illegally acquired people's farmland, you will now post people there to secure it. You arm them. These people, apart from doing your bidding of protecting your interests, also put these arms to other use. It is not enough to say we should search for homegrown solution in Zamfara. Governments must live up to expectation. The illegalities going on in that state that have almost become legalized by those who should move against it are fueling insecurity. Government at federal and state level should look into the illegal mining in Zamfara. If we stop it, if we end it, we will have taken care of insecurity in that state. They should look into complaints by peasants, ordinary people, of illegal acquisition of their lands by certain powerful people. It's been on for many years. Protecting those lands lead to people being armed and putting those arms to other use. Also, farmers, peasant farmers, whose lands were taken away, resort to criminalities.
All right.
I was in Zamfara. I did some researches. I did some stories there. I was able to discover that the things fueling insecurity in Zamfara are quite different from the things fueling insecurity in some other places.
Right.
So if we look into all these issues, we'll be solving the problem by half.
All right, Bikil, you heard Dari. Let me have your final take on this.
Yes, I've had so much said about the presence of gold, fueling banditry and all that. But there are local governments in Zamfara where there is not announced, there is not a streak of gold where banditry is present. The truth is, the old northwestern states are contiguous. All the way from Niger State, you can move into all of the old northwestern states through the forest by merely riding your bicycle. So banditry spreads from state to state in that whole area. Yeah. So whether there is gold in a place or they don't have gold, or people look at Shinkafi, for example. Banditry is very rampant in Shinkafi local government of Zamfara State. And if you ask anyone, they will tell you they don't have a drop of gold. So these people for so long had behaved like it is their right to steal from people. And they are confident that when they attack people's homes, when they kidnap people, they will get good money. Until we decisively deal with them, until we come up with a military campaign that blocks their exit through those contiguous states, because we are attacking them in piecemeal fashion. So if you attack them in Kaduna, they will run into Zamfara, because Kaduna shares boundary with Zamfara. If we attack them in Katsina, they can move from Katsina to another state. So this is what is happening. You attack them in Kebbi, from Kebbi they can move into Niger. From Kebbi they can move into Zamfara. All of those contiguous states, you see banditry is rampant. How do you explain bandits going into a mosque to kill people in Kaduna State, as we saw some hours back? It's a big problem that this government has to deal decisively with, and they need to come up with new ideas. This is what I see. All of the excuses that people are giving, I do not buy a lot of these excuses. We've got to deal with the situation.
Thank you very much, Bikio. I think we can end it there. Thank you so much. Bikio, thank you for joining us from Abuja. Thank you so much, Mr. Dotun Oladipo and Mr. Odu for walk-on. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for your analysis. And please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. That's all on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of the program at 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/Citizen News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.